Relationship anxiety is one of the most common, yet least talked about struggles in modern love. It's that uneasy feeling that creeps in when everything seems fine on the surface, but your mind starts whispering, what if they stop loving me? What if I'm not enough? What if something goes wrong? It can happen to anyone, even people in healthy, committed, and supportive relationships. The heart of relationship anxiety lies in one core fear: losing love or safety. When you deeply care about someone, the idea of losing them can feel unbearable, and that fear can trigger a chain reaction of worry, overthinking, and self-doubt. Understanding what's really happening beneath that fear is the first step toward peace. At its root, relationship anxiety isn't about your partner. It's about your relationship with uncertainty and self-worth. Love naturally involves risk because it requires vulnerability. When you open your heart, you give someone else the power to hurt you, even if they never intend to. This emotional exposure can activate old wounds from childhood or past relationships, especially if you've experienced rejection, abandonment, or betrayal before. The mind starts to confuse the possibility of loss with certainty. Instead of enjoying love, you find yourself trying to protect it by constantly checking, analyzing, or seeking reassurance. Ironically, those protective behaviors often create the very distance you fear. Modern life doesn't make this easier. In an age of constant notifications, social media comparisons, and highlight reels of perfect couples, it's easy to feel like your relationship isn't measuring up. You might see others posting about grand romantic gestures or endless happiness and start questioning your own bond. Are we as close as they are? Are we doing something wrong? But the truth is, those curated glimpses rarely show the real picture. Every couple faces doubt, conflict, and growth, even the happiest ones. Relationship anxiety becomes more manageable when you stop comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's filtered moments. Physically, relationship anxiety can feel exhausting. Your body might stay in a constant state of alert, racing heart, shallow breathing, stomach knots, or restless sleep. Emotionally, it can feel like walking on eggshells, afraid that one wrong move will push your partner away. Mentally, it turns into endless loops of what-if questions that steal your peace. These reactions are your nervous system's way of trying to protect you from emotional danger. But when the perceived threat isn't real, it traps you in an unnecessary stress cycle. Recognizing that relationship anxiety is a response, not a personality flaw, changes everything. It means you can learn to regulate it, to work with your mind instead of fighting against it. Self-awareness, healthy communication, and emotional grounding become powerful tools for healing. You begin to notice when your thoughts are based on fear rather than facts. You learn to ask for reassurance in balanced ways and to soothe yourself when uncertainty strikes. Over time, your confidence in love grows, not because your partner becomes perfect, but because you've learned to create internal stability no matter what happens externally. This guide will explore the key causes of relationship anxiety, how attachment styles shape it, the physical and emotional signs to watch for, and 7 science-backed techniques to calm your mind. It will also show you when it's time to seek professional help and how to build a secure, trust-filled mindset that allows love to flourish. Relationship anxiety doesn't have to define your story. When understood and managed, it can actually deepen your capacity for connection, self-awareness, and emotional resilience. Love feels safest not when everything is certain, but when you learn that you are strong enough to handle the unknown together. Understanding relationship. Anxiety relationship. Anxiety is a common but often misunderstood emotional state that occurs when someone feels insecure, fearful, or uncertain about their romantic relationship, even when there may be no clear reason for concern. It's not limited to people in toxic relationships. Even healthy, loving partnerships can trigger anxiety because of how deeply vulnerable love makes us feel. At its core, relationship anxiety stems from a fear of loss. The idea that someone we care deeply about could leave, stop loving us, or change in ways that cause pain. This fear activates emotional and physiological responses that can make us overthink, doubt our partner's intentions, or question the relationship itself. Many people who experience relationship anxiety describe feeling constantly on edge. They might replay conversations in their heads, analyze text messages, or worry that their partner's tone means something is wrong. This hypervigilance isn't always logical. It's the mind's way of seeking control over something that feels uncertain. Psychologically, it's linked to attachment theory. which explains that people who grew up with inconsistent or unavailable caregivers often develop anxious attachment patterns. As adults, they may crave closeness, yet fear abandonment, creating an internal conflict that fuels anxiety. But even those with secure backgrounds can experience this anxiety, especially during major life transitions such as moving in together, marriage, or after a past betrayal. The brain remembers previous pain and projects it into the present, making small disagreements or silences feel like potential signs of rejection. Social media amplifies this tendency, as constant comparison to perfect couples online can make one's own relationship seem lacking or unstable. Relationship anxiety also manifests physically. Tightness in the chest, trouble sleeping, restlessness, or stomach discomfort are all common symptoms. The body reacts to emotional uncertainty as if it's a real threat. When cortisol levels rise due to chronic worry, it can even affect mood regulation and energy levels, reinforcing the cycle of anxiety. Left unchecked, this pattern can cause emotional burnout, miscommunication, and unnecessary conflict between partners. However, it's important to understand that relationship anxiety does not mean something is wrong with you or your relationship. It's a signal, your mind and body trying to protect you from perceived danger. Recognizing it as a protective response, rather than a personal flaw, is the first step toward healing. This awareness allows you to respond with compassion instead of judgment. Talking openly with your partner, journaling anxious thoughts, and grounding yourself in facts instead of fears can reduce intensity. In more persistent cases, therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or emotionally focused therapy, EFT, helps uncover the root causes and reframe unhelpful thought patterns. Ultimately, understanding relationship anxiety means realizing that love and fear often coexist. It's not about eliminating anxiety completely, but learning to soothe it, communicate honestly, and build trust over time. The more you develop self-awareness and emotional safety, the less power anxiety has to control your connection. When approached with patience and empathy, relationship anxiety can become a bridge to deeper intimacy and self-growth rather than a barrier to love. 2. Common triggers behind relationship anxiety. Relationship anxiety rarely appears without a cause. It is often triggered by specific experiences, thoughts, or emotional patterns that activate fear and insecurity. Understanding these triggers helps you recognize when your anxiety is being driven by past pain rather than present reality. Everyone's triggers may be different, but several common patterns tend to surface across most relationships. One of the biggest triggers is fear of abandonment. When someone worries that their partner might leave, withdraw, or lose interest, even small actions like delayed replies or a change in tone can feel catastrophic. This fear often stems from childhood experiences, such as inconsistent caregiving, parental neglect, or previous heartbreaks, where love felt unpredictable or conditional. Over time, the mind learns to associate closeness with potential pain, making vulnerability feel unsafe. Another powerful trigger is fear of rejection or not being enough. People with this anxiety may constantly question whether they're lovable, attractive, or interesting enough for their partner. When they perceive even mild disinterest, like their partner being distracted or busy, they might interpret it as a sign that the relationship is in danger. This constant self-evaluation creates emotional exhaustion and sometimes even leads to self-sabotage, where a person withdraws before they can be rejected. Unresolved trauma from past relationships can also ignite anxiety in a current one. If someone has experienced betrayal, cheating, or emotional manipulation before, their nervous system may stay in a heightened state of alert. They might find it difficult to trust fully or may overanalyze their partner's behavior, looking for warning signs of history repeating itself. This is the mind's attempt to protect against past pain, but it often ends up harming present happiness. Communication breakdowns are another common trigger. When couples don't express their needs or misunderstand each other, assumptions quickly fill the silence. A lack of reassurance or emotional validation can cause one partner to spiral into doubt and worry. Ironically, when anxiety builds, it often leads to more clinginess or withdrawal, both of which can strain the relationship further. This cycle reinforces the anxiety, making it harder to feel secure. Modern life adds its own triggers too. Social media comparisons and constant exposure to curated relationship highlights make people feel their own love life is lacking. Seeing others' perfect relationships can cause subtle feelings of inadequacy or pressure to live up to unrealistic standards. Similarly, reading about relationship advice online, especially conflicting opinions, can create confusion instead of clarity. Changes and transitions in the relationship, even positive ones, can spark anxiety. Moving in together, getting engaged, or becoming parents introduce new responsibilities and expectations. These shifts can stir up subconscious fears about stability, independence, or identity. Sometimes even the thought of things going too well can trigger anxiety, a feeling known as foreboding joy, where people fear losing something good just because it feels too good to be true. Lastly, low self-esteem and personal stress often intensify relationship anxiety. When you're already struggling with work pressure, family issues, or self-doubt, your emotional resilience decreases. The relationship then becomes a magnifying glass for existing insecurities. Recognizing these triggers is not about assigning blame, but about gaining self-awareness. When you can identify what sets off your anxiety, you gain the power to pause before reacting. Over time, with self-reflection, open communication, and mindful coping techniques, these triggers lose their intensity, allowing love to feel more secure and grounded. How attachment styles influence your fears. Attachment styles play a major role in shaping how people experience love, trust, and emotional security, and they are often the root of relationship anxiety. Developed in childhood through our early interactions with parents or caregivers, attachment styles become the blueprint for how we connect with others later in life. When those early bonds are inconsistent, distant, or overly controlling, they can create lasting emotional patterns that affect how we handle intimacy and conflict in adult relationships. Understanding your attachment style can help explain why you might overthink your partner's behavior, fear abandonment, or struggle to feel secure even in a loving relationship. There are 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant, also called disorganized. Each one reflects a different way of relating to closeness and trust. People with a secure attachment style generally feel comfortable giving and receiving love. They trust their partner's intentions, communicate openly, and can manage conflict without excessive fear of loss. Because they grew up in environments where their emotional needs were met consistently, they believe relationships are safe and dependable. As a result, they are less likely to experience intense relationship anxiety. Though even secure individuals can feel insecure when under extreme stress or with an incompatible partner. Those with an anxious attachment style often crave closeness, but constantly worry about rejection or abandonment. They may read too much into minor signs, a delayed text, a distracted tone, or a shorter hug, and interpret them as evidence that their partner is pulling away. Their internal monologue often sounds like, "Do they still love me?" Or "What if they leave?" This style usually forms when caregivers were inconsistent, sometimes affectionate and sometimes distant, teaching the child that love can be unpredictable. In adulthood, this translates to needing frequent reassurance and finding it difficult to self-soothe when emotional distance appears. In contrast, individuals with an avoidant attachment style value independence so much that intimacy can feel threatening. They might downplay emotions, avoid vulnerability, or withdraw when things get too close. For them, dependence equals weakness because, in childhood, expressing needs may have been met with rejection or criticism. Although avoidant individuals seem calm or detached, they often suppress anxiety beneath the surface. Their fear isn't of being abandoned, it's of being controlled, overwhelmed, or losing their autonomy. This can confuse partners who interpret their emotional distance as lack of care. The fearful avoidant, disorganized style is a combination of both anxious and avoidant traits. People with this pattern often long for closeness yet fear it simultaneously. They might alternate between seeking reassurance and pushing their partner away. This ambivalence often stems from early trauma, neglect, or abuse, where the person they loved was also a source of fear. As adults, they may struggle to trust others or themselves, leading to unstable relationships filled with emotional highs and lows. Understanding your attachment style doesn't mean labeling yourself permanently. It's a tool for awareness. Once you recognize how these patterns influence your fears, you can begin to challenge them. For example, An anxious person can practice self-soothing techniques and remind themselves that love doesn't require constant proof. An avoidant partner can work on expressing needs and learning that vulnerability is not weakness. Healthy relationships often thrive when both partners become aware of their attachment triggers and communicate openly about them. With time, consistency, and emotional safety, attachment patterns can evolve toward security. Therapy, journaling, and mindfulness practices can all help rewire these deep emotional habits. The more you understand your attachment style, the more control you have over your fears, turning old anxieties into opportunities for growth, connection, and lasting trust. 4. Recognizing the physical and emotional signs. Recognizing the physical and emotional signs of relationship anxiety is crucial because it allows you to catch the early warning signals before they spiral into overthinking, conflict, or self-sabotage. Relationship anxiety doesn't just live in your mind. It often shows up in your body and daily behaviors too. The body and brain are deeply connected, and when the mind perceives a threat to emotional safety, the nervous system reacts as if there's a real danger. These physical and emotional symptoms can vary from person to person, but they usually follow clear, recognizable patterns. One of the most common physical signs is persistent tension or restlessness. You might notice tightness in your chest, knots in your stomach, or a racing heartbeat whenever you feel uncertain about your partner's feelings. Your body may stay in a mild fight-or-flight state, producing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. This makes it hard to relax even when everything seems fine. Many people describe lying awake replaying conversations, checking their phones repeatedly, or feeling drained after small misunderstandings, all because their nervous system hasn't returned to calm. Another physical indicator is trouble sleeping or changes in appetite. Relationship worries can keep your mind active long after bedtime, causing insomnia or restless dreams about conflict, cheating, or loss. Some people overeat as a form of comfort, while others lose their appetite completely because their body is preoccupied with emotional distress. Over time, these patterns can weaken your immune system and lower your energy levels, which can further increase irritability and sensitivity in your relationship. On the emotional side, relationship anxiety often appears as constant self-doubt and overthinking. You may find yourself questioning every text, tone, or action, wondering if you did something wrong or if your partner's love is fading. Simple events, like them needing space or being quiet, can trigger waves of panic or insecurity. This emotional hyper-awareness often leads to mental exhaustion. You might catch yourself analyzing situations again and again, trying to find reassurance through logic, but logic rarely calms emotion-driven fear. Another emotional sign is frequent mood swings. One moment you might feel loved and secure. The next, you could be anxious or angry over something small. This emotional roller coaster often stems from your brain trying to interpret uncertain signals. Because your sense of safety feels dependent on your partner's behavior, even minor shifts can feel like major threats. The result is an unstable sense of peace that constantly depends on external reassurance. Many people also experience clinginess or withdrawal as coping mechanisms. Clinginess happens when anxiety pushes you to seek comfort through closeness, texting more, needing reassurance, or becoming upset if communication slows down. Withdrawal, on the other hand, occurs when the anxiety feels overwhelming. Instead of reaching out, you pull away to protect yourself. Both patterns are natural but can create confusion and distance in the relationship if left unchecked. Emotionally, relationship anxiety can also cause feelings of guilt or shame. You may recognize your fears as irrational but still feel powerless to stop them, leading to frustration with yourself. This internal conflict in knowing your partner hasn't done anything wrong but still feeling anxious can create guilt that deepens the emotional struggle. Recognizing these physical and emotional signs doesn't mean you're too sensitive or broken. It means your body and mind are signaling that something feels unsafe or uncertain. The key is to respond to those signals with awareness instead of criticism. Techniques like deep breathing, journaling, mindfulness, or simply naming what you feel, "I'm anxious because I care about this relationship," can begin to calm your nervous system. Over time, learning to observe these signs with compassion, rather than fear, transforms anxiety from an uncontrollable force into an opportunity for self-understanding and growth. 5. 7 evidence-backed techniques to calm. Anxiety calming. Relationship anxiety requires more than wishful thinking. It takes practical techniques that help regulate both your mind and body. When anxiety flares up, your nervous system enters survival mode, making it hard to think rationally or communicate clearly. Fortunately, psychology and neuroscience offer proven methods to restore balance and emotional safety. Below are 7 evidence-backed strategies that can help reduce relationship anxiety and build long-term emotional resilience. The first and most essential technique is deep breathing and grounding. When you're anxious, your breathing becomes shallow, which signals danger to your brain and increases panic. Slowing it down can quickly tell your body that you're safe. Try the 4-7-8 breathing method. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, hold for 7, and exhale through your mouth for 8. Pair it with a grounding exercise, like noticing 5 things you can see and 3 things you can touch. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, calming the body almost instantly. The second technique is cognitive reframing, a core element of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Relationship anxiety often thrives on distorted thoughts. They didn't text back. They must be losing interest. Cognitive reframing helps you challenge these assumptions by asking questions like, is there concrete evidence for this thought? Or what's another possible explanation? Over time, this retrains your brain to separate facts from fears. Keeping a thought journal can make this process even more effective, allowing you to identify recurring worry patterns and replace them with balanced perspectives. The third approach is mindful communication. Instead of reacting impulsively when anxiety strikes, pause and express your feelings calmly. Use I statements such as, I feel anxious when I don't hear from you for a while, rather than accusations like, you never text me. Studies show that mindful, non-blaming communication reduces defensiveness and helps partners connect rather than argue. It also gives your partner the opportunity to reassure you in healthy ways. Fourth, practice self-soothing through physical regulation. Activities that engage your senses, taking a warm shower, stretching, listening to calming music, or using aromatherapy, signal to your brain that it's safe to relax. This works because emotional anxiety often manifests as physical tension. By addressing your body first, you indirectly calm your mind. Regular exercise, yoga, or even a short walk can also release endorphins that stabilize mood and reduce rumination. The fifth technique involves setting healthy boundaries with reassurance. It's natural to want reassurance from your partner, but over-relying on it can feed the anxiety cycle. Instead, create a balance by setting boundaries for when and how you seek comfort. For example, agree that if one person is busy, they'll respond later rather than immediately. This structure helps you build trust and patience while maintaining emotional independence. Sixth, use exposure and response prevention, ERP, a gentle behavioral method often used in anxiety treatment. The idea is to face small triggers without giving in to compulsive reassurance seeking. For instance, if you feel anxious when your partner doesn't reply right away, resist the urge to double text or catastrophize. Sit with the discomfort and remind yourself that uncertainty doesn't mean danger. Over time, your tolerance for emotional ambiguity increases, reducing overall anxiety. Finally, the seventh technique is therapy and self-reflection. Working with a trained therapist, especially one specializing in attachment or relationship anxiety, provides long-term support and tools for emotional regulation. Journaling daily about triggers and responses can also strengthen your awareness. When you understand your emotional cycles, what sparks anxiety, how you react, and what helps, you begin to take charge of your mind instead of being ruled by it. These techniques work best when practiced consistently, not just in moments of panic. Over time, they rewire your nervous system to associate love with safety rather than fear. Relationship anxiety doesn't disappear overnight, but with patience, awareness, and evidence-backed strategies, it becomes manageable, allowing you to experience love with more confidence, calm, and trust. 6. When to seek professional help. Knowing when to seek professional help for relationship anxiety is an act of courage, not weakness. Many people try to handle their anxiety alone, believing it's just a phase or something they can fix with more communication or effort. But when the anxiety begins to dominate your thoughts, affect your mood, or interfere with daily functioning, it's a signal that deeper support may be needed. Therapy provides a safe and structured space to uncover the roots of your fears, develop emotional regulation skills, and rebuild a secure sense of connection, both with yourself and your partner. One of the first indicators that professional help could be beneficial is when your anxiety feels constant and overwhelming. If you find yourself worrying daily about your relationship, struggling to concentrate on work, or feeling physically tense most of the time, therapy can help you break that cycle. Chronic anxiety often stems from unresolved trauma or learned attachment patterns that require more than reassurance to heal. A mental health professional can help identify those patterns and guide you toward healthier coping strategies. Another clear sign is when your relationship anxiety leads to repetitive conflict or avoidance. For example, if small issues escalate into frequent arguments or if you withdraw emotionally out of fear of rejection, it may point to underlying emotional wounds. Couples therapy can be especially effective in such situations, allowing both partners to express fears without judgment and learn constructive communication tools. This doesn't mean the relationship is broken. It simply means the couple needs new ways to create emotional safety. You should also consider therapy when past trauma, betrayal, or trust issues continue to influence your current relationship. Even if your current partner hasn't done anything wrong, old emotional wounds can resurface in subtle ways, through jealousy, over-control, or fear of abandonment. Trauma-informed therapy, such as eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, or somatic experiencing, can help your body and mind release the emotional residue of past pain, freeing you from repeating the same cycles. If your anxiety leads to physical symptoms like sleep disturbances, panic attacks, headaches, or appetite changes, professional support can be crucial. Chronic stress affects both mental and physical health, and addressing it early prevents long-term effects like fatigue, irritability, and burnout. A therapist can also collaborate with your doctor if medication or lifestyle adjustments are needed to stabilize your nervous system. Sometimes, anxiety causes intense guilt or shame. You might recognize your fears as irrational, but still feel powerless to stop them. This internal conflict can lead to self-blame and lowered self-esteem. A professional can help you reframe those thoughts with compassion, teaching you that anxiety is not a character flaw, but a learned response to perceived threats. Through therapy, you can learn to respond to your emotions instead of reacting to them. It's also wise to seek help when your partner's reassurance no longer helps or when they feel emotionally exhausted from trying to fix your anxiety. A therapist can act as a neutral third party who helps you both understand the anxiety as a shared challenge rather than a personal failure. This reduces blame and increases teamwork within the relationship. Finally, if your anxiety triggers behaviors like excessive checking, controlling, or even withdrawing completely, professional guidance becomes vital. These patterns are not uncommon, but without intervention, they can unintentionally damage trust and intimacy. Therapy helps you identify triggers, regulate emotions, and replace fear-driven behaviors with secure, respectful ones. Seeking help doesn't mean you're broken. It means you value your mental and emotional well-being enough to invest in healing. Relationship anxiety can be deeply rooted, but with the right guidance, it's completely manageable. A trained therapist can help you understand your story, calm your nervous system, and create the emotional foundation needed for a stable and fulfilling love life. The sooner you seek support, the faster you can move from constant worry to lasting inner peace and connection. 7. Building a secure relationship. Mindset. Building a secure relationship mindset is about shifting from fear-based reactions to trust-based living. It means learning to approach love not as something fragile that might break, but as something that can grow stronger through communication, consistency, and self-awareness. A secure mindset doesn't mean you never feel anxious or uncertain. It means you know how to navigate those feelings without letting them control you. It's a process of emotional maturity that develops over time, and it begins with how you view yourself, not just your partner. The foundation of a secure mindset is self-trust. When you trust your own ability to handle conflict, rejection, or change, you no longer need constant reassurance from your partner to feel stable. This doesn't mean you become detached. It means you stop equating their every mood or action with your self-worth. Building self-trust can start with small steps, setting boundaries, keeping promises to yourself, and recognizing your emotional triggers. Each time you manage your reactions with awareness, your brain learns that you are safe and capable, even when uncertainty arises. The next step is emotional regulation, the ability to calm yourself when anxiety appears. Secure people feel emotions deeply but don't get lost in them. They pause, breathe, and reflect before reacting. Simple practices like mindfulness, meditation, or journaling can train your mind to slow down when fear takes over. When you notice thoughts like, "they're pulling away," or "what if I'm not enough?" try to observe them rather than believe them. This small pause creates space for a healthier response, one rooted in reality, not panic. A secure relationship mindset also relies on clear, honest communication. Instead of assuming or testing your partner, express your needs directly and kindly. Say, "I feel disconnected when we don't spend time together. Can we plan something this weekend?" rather than withdrawing or overanalyzing. Vulnerable but calm communication builds emotional safety. And safety is the soil in which trust grows. Remember, your partner isn't a mind reader. Clarity reduces confusion and prevents misunderstandings that feed anxiety. Another important element is accepting imperfection in both yourself and your relationship. Every partnership has conflict, boredom, or moments of miscommunication. A secure mindset doesn't interpret these as signs of failure. It sees them as normal parts of growth. The goal is not a flawless relationship, but one where both people feel safe enough to be human. When you stop chasing perfection, you start embracing connection as it truly is. Real, evolving, and sometimes messy. Practicing gratitude and appreciation also reinforces security. When anxiety tells you something is missing, gratitude reminds you of what's already working. Regularly noticing your partner's positive actions, a kind gesture, a supportive word, a small effort, rewires your brain to focus on stability rather than threat. Gratitude softens defensiveness, promotes empathy, and deepens emotional intimacy. In addition, maintaining individuality is key to long-term relationship security. A secure person nurtures their own identity, hobbies, and friendships outside the relationship. This prevents emotional dependency and keeps the partnership balanced. When both partners feel fulfilled individually, they bring more joy and less pressure into the relationship. Lastly, developing a secure mindset means embracing growth over fear. Every relationship, even the healthiest one, will trigger old wounds at times. Instead of running from discomfort, use those moments as opportunities for healing. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to teach me? Growth-oriented thinking transforms challenges into learning experiences, allowing love to deepen instead of deteriorate. In essence, a secure relationship mindset is built on self-awareness, emotional regulation, open communication, and compassion for yourself and your partner. It's not something you achieve once and for all, but something you practice daily. The more consistently you respond to fear with understanding instead of panic, the more your relationship becomes a space of trust, balance, and genuine peace. Over time, anxiety loses its grip and love becomes less about holding on tightly and more about standing strong together.